Mr. Speaker, I rise to provide this Honorable House with an update on the Department of Corrections. I would like to say from the outset that we appreciate and value the work of our corrections officers. Mr. Speaker, the health and safety of our corrections officers is paramount. I would also like to highlight that I have the full confidence in the Bermuda Department of Corrections Senior Leadership Team, led by Acting Commissioner Kiva May Joe Benjamin. Mr. Speaker, most recently, the Prison Officers Association raised significant concerns. The concerns centered around 1, the conditions of the corrections facilities, 2, security, and 3, health and safety. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the Bermuda Department of Corrections produced a strategic plan. The aforementioned plan articulated a systematic method for 1, security upgrades, 2, personnel development, and 3, facility upgrades. Mr. Speaker, most recently, there was an impasse between the Bermuda Department of Corrections Senior Management Team and the POA, the Prison Officers Association. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the aforementioned impasse, a number of the prison officers called in sick. Consequently, there were not enough officers to handle the day-to-day operations within the Department of Corrections. Please note that the senior officers were drafted in to carry out the day-to-day operations in the housing units within the Department of Corrections. Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda Police Service was used to transport inmates to and from court and to medical visits. The impasse reached fever pitch, and in turn, the Prison Officers Association, the Department of Corrections, the Labor Relations Manager, and the Ministry of National Security Permanent Secretary Colin Anderson met in an attempt to solve the outstanding issues. Mr. Speaker, there were concerns with reference to the corrections officers dealing with mentally ill prisoners and the training that was required to manage the prisoners with mental health issues. There are ongoing discussions with the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Health, the Bermuda Hospitals Board to establish a forensic mental health unit here in Bermuda. There is no official timeline as of yet. Mr. Speaker, the Westgate Correctional Facility had limited hot water supply. The budget for the new industrial water heater was recently approved by Cabinet. The industrial water heater will be shipped to the island and will be operational by July 2019. The facility was also in need of 2 industrial washing machines. 1 washing machine was purchased in 2018 and is currently in operation, and the other industrial washer was recently approved by Cabinet and will be on island and in operation by July 2019. There were major leaks in the Westgate water tank. The repairs to the water tank have commenced. Mr. Speaker, the Prison Officers Association are deeply concerned with reference to the health of the corrections officers as a result of mold in the corrections facilities, and rightly so. The Acting Commissioner has implemented a mold remediation and cleaning regime. An air quality assessment is to be completed prior to the end of June 2019, and industrial cleaners will be used to assist with mold remediation in June 2019. Mr. Speaker, the POA, or the Prison Officers Association, have concerns with reference to staff shortages. Please be advised that 25 new corrections officers were hired in September 2018. The recruiting process for 22 new correction officers commenced in May 2019. Training and development of officers is paramount, and so is succession planning. The new senior leadership team have been tasked with discussing the plan with the POA to ensure that the training and development program is robust and fit for purpose. Mr. Speaker, the security within the Department of Corrections was also a concern. A part of the 2017 Corrections Strategic Plan included a security matrix. There are significant elements within the security plan that have been completed or are indeed a work in progress. Mr. Speaker, please note that the duress system in all facilities was recently upgraded. The power unified system, that was recently upgraded. The telephone system was recently upgraded. The fire alarm system was recently upgraded. The infrastructure system for the security system at the farm facility was upgraded. The infrastructure for the farm facility cameras was also upgraded. Mr. Speaker, at the Westgate Correctional Facility, the CCTV system was upgraded. Cameras were replaced and additional cameras were installed. There was a soft-grade upgrade to the Westgate facility camera system. Security fencing at the farm facility was completed. Security fencing at the co-ed correctional facility has commenced and shall be completed by the second week in June 2019. Please be advised, Mr. Speaker, that the Cabinet has recently approved a budget for CCTV upgrade at the co-ed facility. Mr. Speaker, there is a security plan in place for drone sightings. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Corrections have trained canine officers who use dogs to assist with drug detection at all of the correction facilities on island. Mr. Speaker, last Friday, representatives from the Ministry of Works and Engineering visited the Westgate Correctional Facility to tour the facility and to put together a list of priorities for maintenance. Mr. Speaker, last week, the Prison Office Executive, the Department of Corrections, the Labor Relations Manager, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Colin Anderson, they met and they distilled all of the outstanding issues with a view to agree upon a way moving forward. Mr. Speaker, the first outcome was that they would create a working maintenance list of issues. The aforementioned maintenance list would be set in order of priority. The parties agreed to set a time continuum with an accompanying schedule, including deadlines. Mr. Speaker, the second outcome is that all of the elements within the strategic plan will be discussed as a standing agenda item at the monthly Department of Corrections and Prison Officer Association meetings. Also, action points will be discussed and the progress signed off by the Prison Office Association at the end of each meeting. Mr. Speaker, the most significant concerns center around the POA's desire for an increase in pay and the POA membership's payment into the Government Health Insurance Scheme, or the GEHI. Please note that the requested salary increase and payment into the GEHI are subject to the private sector negotiations. Mr. Speaker, the private sector negotiating team and the Prison Officer Association have struggled to come to a consensus re to the terms of reference. Both sides have now come to agreement. The terms of reference are now with the Attorney General's chambers for sign-off. Once the Attorney General's chambers have signed off on the terms of reference, then both matters will go to the arbitrators and arbitration will commence. Mr. Speaker, please note that in July 2019, personnel from HM Prison Inspectorate will be on island to review all Department of Corrections facilities and will provide an independent assessment of all Department of Corrections processes and procedures. Mr. Speaker, the Prison Office Association's members continue to work to rule. This means that corrections officers will not work overtimes, programs and classes are restricted, visits are restricted. Please note that dialogue between the POA, the Department of Corrections, the Ministry of National Security, and the Department of Labor and Training, the talks are bearing fruit. All sides are committed to resolving the outstanding issues. Mr. Speaker, the corrections officer's safety and well-being is paramount. The acting commissioner is tasked with executing the 2017 strategic plan. The Prisoners Office Association have highlighted their concerns. The concerns have been taken seriously. The stakeholders must continue to work together to solve the challenges so that the Department of Corrections can get back to the work of regularly scheduled duties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.